Aloha. We are James and Julia. Julia is just snap tapping to get the air out of the lines, tapping the artificial kidney, again to get out any air that might be in there. So we're just getting ready to do our evening dialysis treatment. We did have a short video before this one talking about the NX stage dialysis system and how it gets set up for treatment. We're just finishing that now. Then we will go ahead and put in needles and start a treatment. We do a treatment 6 nights a week at home for about 3.5 hours, sometimes a little bit more, depending on how much fluid I'm going to take off. So one of the things that we wanted to share, one of the reasons we wanted to share the dialysis process as we do it, is because a lot of people still either are not aware that they can do dialysis treatments at home, or they don't really know what's involved with doing it. A lot of people are afraid to do things at home, and or they may not have a partner or someone that is willing to take the time and responsibility of the dialysis treatments. So again, we've been doing home treatment now for over 11.5 years. We started in January of 2007. When we started dialysis, we were on another machine, a Fresenius Baby K, which took us about 9.5 hours to do a 4.5 hour treatment. This is on and off with hookup and 3.5 hour treatment, about 4.5 hours. So definitely a lot more efficient.
That's great.
All right, Julia has said we are ready. So we're going to go ahead and put in some needles. I'll try and get the angle just right. We use buttonhole needles. My fistula that we're hooking up into the vein that is actually a vein and an artery connected together was made about 12.5 years ago. We've had frequently to take a trip over to Honolulu and do a balloon angioplasty of the fistula, which is opening up areas that are narrowed or removing clots or stenosis that are interfering with the blood flow. We were doing the trips to have that balloon angioplasty done about every 3 months for about 3 years or so anyway. And then there was a chemical stent that had come out of clinical trials. And that medical stent is coating one of the balloons that is inflated during the angioplastic treatment, and the stenting medication is adhered to the inner part of the vein where my vein has narrowed. That stenting process has allowed me so far an extra 2 months. So I've gone from 3 months to about 5 months. Do you remember the name of that, Julia? Paclitaxel. That's what paclitaxel, although they say there are other names for it. So that's been real helpful. It's been nice not to have to go in quite as often. We're quite well known at the hospital in Oahu. They recognize our voices when we call, and overall the treatment, the surgery is relatively simple. We have had some complications. 2 times previously going in to have the balloon angioplasty, they overwrapped my arm after the surgery. They basically cut off the blood supply, which had been quite efficient at the end of the surgery. So we ended up going back into the surgery room and having a catheter put in just below the clavicle, a subclavian catheter, which is basically a port that goes into a vein down by the heart, as I understand it, and that you can do the dialysis from those 2 ports. Anyway, we were fortunate in that when we got to the hotel that night after the surgery, we loosened up the bandages, the taping, tegaderm, and I could feel a small pulse down by the wrist where the surgical vein and arteries were adhered together, called anastomosis. So I could feel the pulsing, and we worked on those for a couple days until the thrill. Julia just got a nice flash, and now she's drawing up the blood. And then she'll put in a little saline, she'll flush the line, and then she will put in some heparin so that it can keep the vein from clotting. So this is the artery, the arterial access that draws the blood out during treatment. And after we get this taped and secured, we'll go ahead and put in the venous, which is what returns the blood after it is cleansed by the dialysis process as it flows to the kidney. So we're going to take a little time and we'll put in. Sometimes this takes a little bit more time to go in, but it's a smaller vein, and sometimes takes just a little bit more. Both the arterial access and the vein or the venous access are buttonholes. We've been using buttonholes for probably 11 years. We were the first ones, we were the first people in Hawaii to be trained to do home hemodialysis. Most people that do dialysis at home do what's called peritoneal, which is doing dialysis through the peritoneal cavity. Basically, a hose is surgically implanted in the peritoneal cavity, and most people do the dialysis at night, very slow. But we were offered the opportunity to do peritoneal dialysis when we were first told that we were going to have to go ahead and do dialysis. But we were aware at that time from doing some research that if we did that, we wouldn't be able to swim anymore. One of the reasons we moved to Hawaii was that Julia and I are both swimmers, and we wanted to be in an area where we could swim year-round. So we decided to go ahead and do home hemo, which is basically what we're doing now, hooking up needles to draw blood out and to return the cleansed blood back in the body. So again, we do this 6 nights a week. One of the nice things that we like to share about doing home hemodialysis is that you can watch a big screen TV, control the climate so that you don't get too cold or too hot. You can eat. When we're done hooking up, I'll get a 4 or 5 course meal. I've actually eaten lobster that was given to us by our Hawaiian neighbor while I was on dialysis. So it's a lot more convenient. It is healthy. I'm fortunate in that I have a partner that is willing to, I have to just change the angle a little here. Try that. So we would like just to share what we do so that other people that are either going to be going on dialysis or have a friend or that are on dialysis in a center that might catch our videos and see that it is something that can be done. It's not always easy. We've had times when we're having trouble with our access, where it's clotted again and narrowing down, or having some problems where we have to go in and do a fistulogram and have it, again, a balloon angioplasty is what we normally do. We've had other times where when the access is acting up, where it's taken us well over an hour to get our needles in, especially with the buttonholes. The buttonholes are basically a scar tissue tunnel that is created by going into the vein with a sharp needle. After about 8 to 12 times of going in at the same angle, usually by the same technician, you create a buttonhole, which is basically like a scar tissue tunnel or like a pierced ear. After you get your buttonhole created, you can go in with a dull needle. The advantage of using a buttonhole and being able to go in with a dull needle is that it's almost impossible to infiltrate. It's almost impossible to go through the vein all the way. Infiltration, which means that blood spills out from the other side of the vein and creates oftentimes these aneurysms. If you see people that have been on dialysis for a longer time, their arms often have these big purple bulges, and that is created by the infiltration. So the buttonholes, they take time. They are difficult to do in the dialysis treatment centers because they have to be done patiently. And in the dialysis centers, usually everyone is in a hurry to get things started because they have to get in and out of treatment in a certain time, have to take off a certain amount of fluids, and get the next patient in. I'm just going to check in with Julia. Looks like we're making a little progress tonight. We'll just let her continue. So anyway, we use these buttonholes. My arm has stayed pretty healthy, although they tell me frequently after one of these balloon angiograms that it's getting a little old and probably won't last forever. I've actually had backups on the right arm. We wanted some backup fistulas in case that one gave out. And I'm going to have to squeeze for Julia. We're not quite in, but we're very close. You want me to check them?
Yeah.
I'm just going to check your hand. Okay. Let's see, where were we? Oh, getting on dialysis, going in for a balloon angioplasty, having troubles on and off. But usually after we go in and have the ballooning, things, like I say, go well now for about 5 months. Usually during that time, it's pretty easy. We take our time to get hooked up, get needles in. Not quite yet, but we're close. We're very close. Oh, and let me adjust again. Okay, we'll try there. So, like I said, it's not always free from challenges, but the trade-off, yeah, I had a day off yesterday, and sometimes that takes a little bit more time, but there we are, that's fine. go ahead and get that started and taped. It needs to put in little saline and heparin. Then we're off to the cleaning. To the races, yeah. So Julia is an angel. She hasn't missed a day in the nearly 12 years we have been on dialysis. Okay. All right, so she's going to hook up now to the NX stage system. She'll hook up the lines and then start treatment. So when we first began training, and again, we were the first to train to do hemodialysis in Hawaii. We were doing it at St. Francis Dialysis Hospital in Oahu, and the trainer that was teaching us had never taught anyone to do this at home, to do hemo. She had done mainly peritoneal. So it was a learning curve for her. Julia actually knew a little more than the woman training us, because Julia had already learned to put needles in and take them out in the Lefui Dialysis Center. Sharp needles on Kauai. So because they knew we were going to be doing home hemo, they asked Julia if she would like to at first take needles out and then later to put needles in. And so she had been doing that for at least 2 months before we went to Oahu to train. So anyway, now we're on dialysis. Julia has just started the machine. Everything seems fine. I like to watch when the process starts. The venous, I like to watch to make sure it's running relatively quickly in, and that the arterial blood is running and doesn't seem to have like any clots or anything. So here we are, and for the next 3.5 hours I'll have some food, watch TV, try to avoid watching too much news, except for local. Yeah, except for our local news. And then we'll catch a few crime shows, a little CSI, CSI, and some other shows that we like, Hawaii Five-0, Blue Bloods. Simple. When we watch, we'll watch Vanna and Pat on Wheel of Fortune while we eat. And so that's took a little longer because we were doing the video, so it took a little longer to get our venous needle in, but sometimes that's par for the course anyway. Again, I just had a day off, so sometimes then they're a little bit more fussy. You might have a little scar tissue growing up in the tunnel that you're going into with the needle.
The angle has to be right.
bend angle and everything has to be pretty much right on. So anyway,
We're off and running.
yeah, we're off and running. So aloha, and if you spent some time with us on this video and maybe watch the other videos that we'll have up, you can email us, contact us if you have any questions. We've been helped a lot. We were quite frightened. I mean, we were very holistic. We were eating really good. We took all our vitamins. We exercised, and we were not ready to go on dialysis when we were told that our GFR, our blood flow through the kidneys, the glomerular filtration rate was down to 5. I was basically very close to dying. I tell people I finally felt the hand of death come in, and we knew that we had to start. We called our nephrologist, and he got us in to the Lahui Dialysis Center on Kauai, but not for a week. So we had that week to think about, how much we really didn't want to go on dialysis. And so we went on some of the support groups, found a couple very good support groups, which I recommend. Always just go on, find the older dialysis support groups and get familiar with some of the people and get some feedback. Because we want to do still, and it looks like we may be able to do nocturnal hemodialysis here within the next maybe 6 months. But when we started 12 years ago, we were hoping that we would be able to do nocturnal when we started to do home hemodialysis. And we had let it be known in our support group that we were interested in doing nocturnal, and we actually had a call from Australia from a gentleman called Lance Down Under, who shared his process of doing nocturnal. He sent us some pictures of how he secured his arm, and but we just had a lot of very, very good support, because like most people, we were afraid of going on and doing dialysis. But now, without further ado, I have some hot wings, some very good ramen soup, and soon I'll have a salad. What else are we having?
Rice.
Rice, veggies, and all those
Corn
veggies.
and
Corn on the cob,
corn and beans.
which is a little tricky, one hand, but we're doing it. So anyway, for what it's worth, we appreciate being able to do what we do. We're very, very grateful to be able to still be alive and basically healthy. So, till next time, Shaka, Shaka.
Cucumber.
Shaka, cucumber, aloha.